Welcome to Bear Down Ballers. I'd like to welcome in a man who has had his pulse on his hand on the pulse of Arizona basketball for decades now, and a man that has immense knowledge and history with the Arizona Wildcat program. Mr. Greg Hansen, how are you doing, sir?
Hey, I was just thinking that the first NCAA tournament game Arizona played and I went to was in Albuquerque.
Oh, wow. What year was that? Do you remember?
It was Lute's first game, 1985.
Wow.
And they scored 41 points.
Really? Wow.
Alabama beat them 50-41.
High scoring. Not the same as our current team, I would say.
Oh, wow. No kidding.
So I appreciate you coming on today, man. I mean, you've been, like I said, you've been covering, Arizona for, decades now. What's that experience been like for you, like being a part of the program for that long?
It's the one reason I stayed in Tucson. When I got here, I was just going to spend a year or two and then I wanted to move to like LA or San Francisco. And the timing was such that Lute just took over. And it was so enjoyable to be around that I forgot those feelings about moving on. It was as fun here as anywhere else. So
That's amazing that you've been there, in the community for that long, covering so many different teams, players, eras of Arizona basketball. Talk to me a little bit about your relationship with Coach Olson. I know you guys had an up and down relationship, but mostly up. But talk to me about that experience. I've just always wanted to ask you that over all these years.
well, I saw the good side of him all the time. I always had a full respect for him and still do. I mean, I had some times with him you can never forget, like when he coached the USA championship team to the World Championship in Spain. I got to spend the whole 3 weeks with him, and we stayed in the team hotel, went on the team bus, flew on the team plane. There were only two media guys, and they were both from Tucson. And I mean, we were in Paris, France one afternoon. We went to the Champs-Élysées, and Lute sat there with us at some outdoor patio drinking beer all afternoon. And the funniest part of that, we were walking back to the bus, and like David Robinson and Steve Kerr and all those guys were on the team. And we get in the team bus, and Lute just kind of passed out. He's on the front seat, of course. And then the team came like 20 minutes later, and they all saw Lute sitting there. And he had spilled mayonnaise and ketchup on his shirt. He grabbed a hamburger on the way back to the bus, had a big stain on his shirt, and you know how neat he usually was. And they all just stopped and looked at him. They couldn't believe this was the majestic Lute Olson with this Wendy's hamburger mess on his shirt. So I've seen him from that to when he really got, serious. I mean, when UNLV knocked him out of the tournament in 1989 and Arizona was number one, it was Sean Elliott's last game. And they're walking off the court. It's in Denver. And it was just a bad moment, as you can guess, as you probably remember from 98.
Sure.
And Greg Anthony of UNLV turns around and goes, F you guys, we'll beat you next year at the MAC too. And Lute had to be restrained. I mean, Jesse Evans was holding him back. It was, so I've seen from sitting there in Paris enjoying the afternoon to getting that heated against Jerry Tarkanian.
I've read something about that trip to overseas to the World Championships. Expand on that a little bit. What kind of T-shirt was Coach Olson wearing when he got that mustard and mayonnaise on there? And talk about one of his one-liners I think that he had after everyone saw him with that messed up shirt.
It's funny. His baggage got lost from LA to Paris, and so he didn't have his coaching clothes, USA coaching clothes. And the trainer on that team was from Indiana. And so he pulled out his Indiana stuff and it fit Lute. And so for like 5 days, because Bob Knight was Lute's probably biggest rival ever.
Right.
Lute's walking around with an Indiana Hoosier shirt on. He coached with them on in the practices and everything. That was just a trip you can never forget. I mean, we go to Malaga, Spain, right on the coast. And we were all naive young guys had never seen the world, and there were topless beaches. Right 100 yards from the hotel is a topless beach right on the coast of Mediterranean, and we all walk out and go, "Holy cow!" I look up and there's Steve Kerr and Sean Elliott both with cameras taking pictures of ladies, and that was a trip to remember. And maybe the thing I remember most about it was they were playing the Russians for the championship, the gold medal, and the Russians had pros against, our amateurs. And Arvydas Sabonis was their best player, even though David Robinson outplayed him. And they show up for their last walk around the day before the game, and the Russians are stalling. They don't want to give Arizona their full court time. And Lute, his presence is so strong. He walks up to the people in charge of the event and he goes, "If they're not off the court in 5 minutes, there's not going to be a game tomorrow." And he stood there and the Russians came scurrying out. It was, and you saw that side of him.
That sounds like Coach O to me. That's right.
He was just in charge. That was, I wish I had, smartphone then where I could have videoed some of that stuff.
I do too. I think about that all the time. Even, from 97 and stuff, we didn't even have cell phones back then. So we missed out on a lot of good content for sure. For sure.
And I got one more quick one. In 92, they played a first round game in Atlanta and they were a huge favorite. They had Damon and Khalid and those guys, and they lost in the first round to East Tennessee State, which was, unfortunately for Arizona, sadly underrated. They could beat anybody. They had players. And they're like Tommy Lloyd's team now. They were up and down, and they even went faster than Lute. And he was so peeved at the end of that game when he had to go through that press conference and a reporter asked him something about losing the game or whatnot. And he said, what do you say to those people who say you guys just fell flat? And he goes, "Show me your resume." Got up and stormed off the podium. So I've seen him from there to being one of the most humble, nicest guys ever. And I'd like to hear your stories about him.
Oh, I've got plenty, but trust me. And he was an amazing man, and helped all of us, so much over the years, and just not just basketball wise, but personally, and teaching you the right way to act and be a success in life. Like there's so many different stories of Coach helping us with that. With all your years of experience, I'm going to ask you this, and I want to get your opinion. You've been covering Arizona for so many years. In your mind, what is the best team that Lute has ever had?
Oh, I wouldn't hesitate. The 88 team.
Okay.
Their schedule, they beat number one Syracuse. They were ridiculously good. You were probably 10 then. The toughest game that year was at New Mexico. They went to New Mexico undefeated, I think 2 days before New Year's, and I'd never been in the pit.
Yeah.
Mexico was really good. And we're sitting there a half hour before the game looking around going, holy crap. You know how tough it was at Maples in those years? Or at Haas Pavilion? The pit to me was, I'd never seen an atmosphere like that. And New Mexico just beat them by like 4. They were undefeated, number one. And I thought if you could hang in that game, you could beat anybody at any time. And that team just steamrolled. The Pac-12 wasn't very good that year. Just steamrolled. And then unfortunately, they had to beat Dean Smith to get there.
Yeah.
They beat him in the Elite Eight in a very memorable game. And then they ran into an Oklahoma team and I'm sure you've had Matt Muehlbach on here before. When he talks about that Oklahoma team, it just lets me know how good Arizona was, that they hung with them to the last minute. Because that was the best Oklahoma team in history, and Arizona just happened to run into them at the wrong time.
So I'm going to tell you this. I was at that game in New Mexico as a little kid cheering for the Lobos against the Wildcats at that point. I remember that game very vividly. So that was my start to liking the University of Arizona back as a little kid, actually.
Yeah, you could probably talk all day about those games at the pit.
Oh yeah, those were you remember those games. That's when we saw Coach O being a little bit upset at times, I would say.
Were you on the team that he thought got, the
Yeah,
rep messed with him?
yeah, that was my senior year. That was the last time they played at the
Yeah,
pit, JT and
Jason
I.
was on the team,
Yep,
yeah.
yep. So all for the four final four teams, I want you to give me your rank from 1 to 4. So 88, 94, 97, and 2001. How would you rank those teams 1 to 4, one being the best? And you said 88, so I guess 88 is number one.
And then I think personnel wise, 2001 would be right there as close as you could get with them because come on, come up with 5 starters better than that 2001 team had. Gilbert, Jason, Richard Jefferson. Michael Wright was a man,
Oh yeah,
as you know more than anybody. And Lauren Woods, holy cow.
yeah.
He had a year as good as anybody in the country, and they still couldn't win it. And then obviously you're 97 because they won all the big games is right there in the same. I don't know how you separate them. And then I thought the 94 team was not quite at that level, but they had 2 superstars in Damon and Khalid.
Yeah.
But those other 3, 97, 01, and 88 were just superior.
I gotta say, I think we would match up with anyone, but I'm just gonna say that, I have to because of our 97 team. But all of those teams had amazing talent. I mean, Coach Olson recruited some incredible players over the years. It was a crazy run of success that he had at Arizona.
I remember how harrowing those first 2 games were, South Alabama and
Yep.
College of Charleston, which seemed to be forgotten. Oh, to me, that's the true NCAA tournament, that you have to survive 2 ledge walks like those games. And were they as hard or harder than beating Kentucky and Kansas?
That first game in the tournament is one of the hardest games to win for whatever reason. I think just because of nerves, and especially that year, we're coming off a pretty rough, Pac-10 season that year, had a lot of losses, and everyone was kind of down on us. So I think that first game and being down, I think we were down 10 with 5 minutes to go in that game. And, we never panicked, but we definitely felt a little bit of pressure, but we just kept playing. And, that was the kind of the mark of our team, was that year was we just never quit and just kept coming back. And, whatever the situation was, we figured out a way to be successful and get out of it. So those first 2 games were tough, though. Even College of Charleston was the same. They had a really good team that year, very well coached by John Kress, and that was a battle too. Those first 2 games were rough. Yeah.
And then you beat the best team in the country the next game.
That one we do. I say this all the time. We felt like we were going to win that, and we felt even before the game, and we were just loose, and for whatever reason, we had extreme confidence before that game, which translated into us being able to get it done. And Kansas made a heck of a run at the end of the game, but we were able to pull it out. So that's one of my fondest memories, obviously, of the tournament run. But all those games, we didn't have any easy games in that that whole run. So
Yeah, it's like that North Carolina game was kind of forgotten amid all the other tough ones along the way.
yeah, they had us down early too. I mean, we were down pretty much all those games early, and we're able to battle back. It was an incredible run. I was just happy that we were the team that really got Coach O his national championship and put him on that level that he was always supposed to be on. So it's one of my favorite things that I've done in my life. So it was a great run, great run. Um, so now let's switch a little bit to the current state of Arizona basketball. Just wanted to get your thoughts on the job that Tommy Lloyd has done this year, the team this year, and then I'll have a follow-up question on some of the things that were announced, for the Pac-12 Conference Awards, and want to get your take on that too. But what's your thoughts on how this season has gone? I mean, it's been pretty surprising and amazing season so far.
I remember when the media people turned in their votes for the preseason poll, I picked Arizona 3rd, and I thought maybe I'll be accused of being a homer, but I kept looking at the rosters more and more and thinking, well, the league's not that good this year.
Yeah.
And maybe it's when you're here all the time. I remember the best of Tubelis and the best of Mathurin and the best of Coloco. And I just thought, no one else in the league has 3 guys like that. And to see it pan out, it was like week by week, about every week, it was like you go, wow, they're even better than I thought they were.
Yeah.
Until they get to this point. To me, that was, well, Tommy Lloyd said it after they beat Cal last week. He said, from where we started to where we are now, I didn't expect this. And I think that's kind of what everybody would say. I could you have guessed 26-3?
Not at all. I mean, and I thought they would be successful, and I thought they would have a good season and play better than they were expected to by a lot of the media and everyone going into the season. But I mean, no one could say that they knew that this was coming. And Tommy Lloyd's first year, the transition, a lot of the guys not having played together or played big minutes on a team yet. And I mean, I think the job that he's done has just been incredible. And it's a credit to him, but it's a credit to the players as well, that they've, really bought into the system, worked hard every single day, not gotten too high or too low, and have just been able to come out and really, outside of, 3 games, played pretty amazing basketball the entire season so far. So it's been fun to watch. They play an exciting brand of basketball, which I love. I love that they run up and down and, throw lobs and dunk and play fast like we used to. It's just fun to watch.
It was funny, early, I think it was late October, I got to go to a practice with Jim Rosborough, and it was like having the all-time professor sitting next to you explaining.
Oh, yeah.
And about halfway through the practice, even a dummy who doesn't know an X and O like me, I go, wow, this is different. Look at it. Is this just, are they trying to get in some wind sprints here? And he goes, no, this is how they're going to play. And I went, really? Because, we haven't seen that for so long.
Yeah.
And then the first few games of the year, it was just like, boy, they are going to play like this. And I kept wondering, why don't more people try this?
Well, why you got to have the players. Yeah. And the one thing that they have that I think is overlooked is their basketball IQ. I mean, every single player on this team has an extremely high basketball IQ and can read situations and, make the right plays a majority of the time. And, you don't get a whole team very often that has, that type of just basketball acumen. So it's been extremely fun to watch for me as an alumni. So it's been great. With that, and their great play this year, the Pac-12 awards were announced and Arizona dominated this thing. That's what I was going to ask you. Has this ever happened before in your history of covering the league? Or like, I don't, in my opinion, since I was there, it hasn't. So has this ever happened where they've swept, pretty much almost every award?
It's hard to believe, but Arizona's never had the Defensive Player of the Year.
That was surprising.
Of course, they didn't do it for about 10 or 12 years. I don't know. But even Nick Johnson didn't get one. Even Rondé Hollis Jefferson didn't get it.
Yeah, or Lauren Woods. I mean,
Bennett Davidson.
Yep.
Rosborough always says
Reggie Geary.
So there's 5 right there. And so this is the first one. And they probably should have had 5 minimum. And then, of course, they didn't have most improved player till about 10 years ago. But I think Arizona now has 9 players of the year.
Right.
And no one else has more than 7. And they've had 3 first teamers, I would guess 7 or 8 times. But altogether, if you throw in the coach of the year and the player of the year, I should have looked that up before I talked to you, but it's got to be, I can't imagine a team going beyond this.
Yeah, Chris with CeeLo getting most improved and defensive player of the year, which is pretty amazing to do both in the same year. I don't know if that's happened before, but kudos to him for the work that he's put in over the years and the player that he's turned into. It's been fun to watch as a big man, watching that development of when that light turns on and the guy, finally comes into his own has been great. CeeLo's, been playing an exceptional basketball this year. What are your thoughts on him?
Well, I think back to his freshman year in that final home game, and Oregon beat him in overtime when Oregon was the best team in the league. And he had those free throws to win the game in overtime. And I remember before I went to the line, I looked and he was shooting 32%. And I went, oh no, this is going to be so sad for him. I just couldn't bear to see that pressure come down on him. And, he didn't just miss, he bricked them.
Yeah.
And now he's got that terrific form. how often does a guy improve that much?
Yeah,
Really, who
yeah.
have you seen who's improved like this?
Nobody. I mean, not that greatly from year to year. Coach Olson always talked about how I improved, a lot from my freshman to sophomore year. But CeeLo, I mean, from where he came from to where he is now and where he can still go, I mean, it's been pretty exceptional to watch his journey. And I think it's obviously a lot of coaches have been involved in his development, but I think the way that Tommy Lloyd has handled him this year and really, empowered him has really helped his game.
Hey, from your experiences in the pros, both in the NBA and Europe, what does he have to do to be good enough now to stick there?
I think just continue to get stronger, and get a little bit a stronger base. But he can defend, multiple positions. Even when he switches out on guards, he's very good at defending guards one on one and not allowing them to drive past him, which is a key, trait for the NBA right now. I think his jump shot is very good, and it's something that he really hasn't used as much or doesn't need to use much in Arizona. But in the pros, he could be a pick and pop guy too. And really, running the court, he does better than almost anyone in the nation too. So, I mean, all of those things are pro skills for him. So, I mean, he's going to play basketball, professionally for as long as he wants to. I think he's still developing. Like, he's not a finished product yet. He still has a high ceiling. But the way that he's played, especially in big games this year and against big time competition, I mean, and the tournament run will show that even more this year. But I think the sky is the limit for CeeLo because how hard he works, the kind of kid the kind of young man that he is. I think he's got a really bright future ahead of him. What do you think?
I was watching Gonzaga last night, and their Chet Holmgren.
Yeah.
You seen him play?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been watching him since high school. So
my mouth was open watching him, like early in the game when he would do those reverse pivots through the lane with the dunk through traffic, and his 3-pointers and his reach on defense, how he's blocking shots. And I just hit me that it's a different game. There's Koloko and Holmgren now, non-traditional centers that we've seen through the years. And it's so fun to see Koloko in that group, because when he sits on a podium and speaks in Q&A sessions with media guys, he is so well-spoken, so soft-spoken. You can tell he's a good person.
Yeah, he is.
And that's what has stuck with me the most is this guy came from Cameroon. I don't know what his family situation was, but here he is now. He did it. He's now going to be a millionaire, many times over. And it's so encouraging and fun to see a guy like him rise like that.
Absolutely. It's been one of the bright spots for sure this year of the season, amongst many though. So give me your preview of the Pac-12 tournament. How do you think this goes for Arizona? Who do you think as a roadblock for them? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know what to make of ASU because of the 6 games they've won recently, 5 of them are against really bad teams.
Right.
But I know they're tough and aggressive and hustle. And if they shoot, like any team, if they shoot those threes well, you're in trouble. I just can't picture Arizona losing to them at this point. I just can't.
I can never picture that anyway, so it's fine. Yeah. And Jason Terry and I never lost to them our whole career, so that's still a badge of honor that I wear proudly.
That's what Damon always says too. And I guess if they beat ASU, the next game would be probably maybe Oregon or Colorado. Well, it would be Oregon or Colorado. A week ago, I would have feared Oregon more, but Will Richardson kind of disappeared. He's their best player.
Yeah.
Not to say he won't come back, but I think Arizona could beat Colorado by double figures. Colorado would probably come into the game thinking, hey, we've got the sauce here to beat these guys, and it'll be a completely different everything.
Absolutely. Different game for sure on a neutral court.
I think Oregon could give Arizona, go to the last couple minutes with them. But then again, it's one of the worst Oregon teams in 10 years. So I couldn't see Arizona losing to them either.
Yeah.
So to me, it's UCLA, Arizona on Saturday night, and that would be what a spotlight game for the Pac-12. 2 top 10 teams, 18,000 people there, live on Fox. I mean, that's Pac-12 doesn't get that very often.
Yeah, that'd be a big time for the conference. We've had a couple of Arizona games, this year that have been on the national spotlight where they've shown pretty well. But it's always good to get that spotlight on the West Coast, especially right before the tournament. So that'd be good for us.
I can imagine what the arena is going to be like.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys I play golf with during the week, they're all going. They've been planning to go for weeks, and I figure that's the same in the community. I bet that road between here and Las Vegas tomorrow morning is just packed with U of A fans.
That's what we want to see. We know, those U of A chants. That's the best thing when you're watching TV and they're on the road or a neutral site. You can hear that in the background of the announcers. That's my favorite thing.
And I can't even figure UCLA. What do you think UCLA would get? 1,000 people?
Yeah,
Maybe.
we'll see. Yeah, I don't know. Well, but I hope we get to see it though. Hope we get to see it.
Yeah.
Okay, before I let you go, where do you think Arizona's tournament run goes this year, and what's the X factor that you see that has to happen for them to make a run to the Final Four and possibly have a chance at taking everything?
I think Tubelis has to be very productive because he's been kind of quiet lately, and they've made up for it. Maybe because of their teams they've played haven't been that good. I think because Tubelis, who has a guy like Tubelis? Not very many teams.
Yeah.
I like what Matt Muehlbach calls him, the Lithuanian locomotive.
Yeah. I've called him the rock for the team pretty much the whole year. He does so much to facilitate winning for them. That doesn't always show up in scoring or, he can score obviously and rebound and get stats, but like just the piece that he plays within the offense and defense has been, very integral to the success that they've had this year.
And I also think Crease needs to play well, shoot well, and be wise about shooting. Those would be my 2 things because I think Mathurin is a big gamer now.
Yeah.
And the way Pele Larson and Ballo have come on, they're reliable guys. But then every time, to me, when I think about the whole month, Arizona's lost every conceivable level. Heartbreak to joy.
Yep.
So unpredictable. Before I moved to Tucson, I lived in Eugene, Oregon, and Oregon State, of all teams, was number 1 in the nation my last year there in 1981, I mean. They were 26-0. They had a team it was a national championship team, once a century team. They go into the tournament 26-1. And the only team they lost to was the best team in ASU history. They had Byron Scott and Fat Lever.
Yep.
So they go into the tournament 26-1, and they lost the first round to Kansas State.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's what I think about. As much as I think about your team and how it achieved, I balance it out with remembering that Oregon State and so many others who just didn't make it.
It's a tough road. It's a tough road. You got to have a lot of things go your way to cut down those nets. Even if you're the best team, like I thought, we were in '98. We were a much better team. One of the best, probably the best team I ever played on ever. And, a bad day, bad matchup, and you're out of there. So you gotta get a lot of things going your way to make it happen.
That day, that '98 game, I'm from Utah, so I knew the radio guy for Utah, and he had me on the pregame show for a minute, and he asked me, "What do you think is going to happen in the game?" And I had never given a thought that Utah would win the game. I just thought, can't happen. And then what did it take? 12 minutes into the game, and you realize, uh-oh.
I was in the same way. I thought the same thing before the game. So it was just a shock. It was shocking. Still shocking to this day.
Yeah. So predict stuff at your own risk.
That's right. Well, sir, hey, I appreciate your time today. This has been really fun. And, I enjoy your time, at the Pac-12 tournament. enjoy this tournament run. Keep doing what you're doing, and thanks for being a part of my history and all the history of Tucson for so many years. We appreciate that.
Thanks, AJ. Good luck to you and your boys.
All right, appreciate it, sir. I'll talk to you soon. Before we move on to the next topic, let me tell you guys a little bit about our partners over at BetRivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up with BetRivers yet, now's the time, because they are offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just one playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. With their new Rush Play Instant Approval, withdrawing your winnings is safer, more secure, and more reliable. With basketball season tipping off, get in on the action by going to betrivers.com today or by downloading the BetRivers iOS app. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome to Better Now Ballers. I'd like to welcome in my man, my OG, really. One of the first of only 2 players to earn Best Defensive Player honors 4 consecutive seasons by a vote of his teammates, which I voted for him for that award as well. Mr. Reggie Geary, what's happening, man? Welcome.
Hey, what's up, AJ, man? Thanks for having me on.
I'm doing good, man. I've been wanting to get you on for a while, so I'm looking forward to this, man. Okay, I want to jump in early. We're going to cover like a little bit of everything about you. I want to hop into your high school career at Mater Dei. One of the powerhouse programs across the United States in high school sports, basketball especially. One thing I didn't know, you played also baseball and track in high school. I didn't know that. Like, talk to me about that a little bit. How did that come about? Did you do that growing up, or I didn't know you even played multiple sports in high school?
Yeah, baseball was my first love, in all honesty. Like, okay. That was the sport that I was best at. If you ask people around my way, kind of about me as a youngster, baseball was the thing that I thought I was going to be a pro in. It was something I was naturally good at. I did it from a young age. I did it in high school a little bit, and I'll get into that here in a second, how that kind of went a different direction. But baseball was my thing. Track was just something, stay in shape or whatever during the season. Baseball was my first true love. But I started getting attention for basketball, around, I don't know, that 7th, 8th grade, and that kind of admiration and getting those letters, it kind of took over a little bit my thinking, and I kind of got away from baseball, not realizing I probably could have done both.
What position did you play in baseball?
I was center fielder. I was a 5-tool guy. Like, right. I was Eric Davis and Darryl Strawberry. Like, those were my guys. Gary Pettis, I had a big arm. I had a big bat. Like I said, I loved it. I really did. And I wish I would have continued with it. But, basketball, man, it put the hook in me.
I'm sure there's some softball teams out there right now that still take you back, man. You want to get out there,
right?
Get out there and get back at it. So you were first team All-State, All-City, All-County CIF Player of the Year. I mean, those are huge awards, man. I mean, that's big time. At Mater Dei, talk about your high school career just a little bit. What Mater Dei meant to you and how it kind of shaped your athletic career.
Yeah, Mater Dei, as you mentioned, one of the West Coast powerhouses, ran by Gary McKnight, the head coach there. He should be a Hall of Famer. He had 2 terrific assistants, Dave Taylor and Phil Bellamo, that were almost like college coaches. So to be experienced that in high school, those levels of teaching and fundamentals, man, it really took me to the next level. Obviously, the competition was fierce. We were traveling nationally, going to St. Louis and San Diego before that was even a real thing. And so, just to be exposed by those coaches and the players, Dylan Riggan, when I first got there, was a U of A guy. Dylan was a big deal. He was kind of doing his thing, and I got a chance to kind of watch him a little bit. And in 1990, we won the state championship. 91, we came back, lost to Cherokee Parks in the semifinals, and then 92 was my year. And just a great experience. Ended up, winning CIF, won a lot of awards. Ended up losing the state championship to Jason Kidd, but being that as Jason, I'm not going to lose too much sleep over it.
Yeah. That's if you're going to lose, might as well lose to a Hall of Famer.
For sure.
So after your high school career, who else was recruiting you? Ultimately, obviously, you decided on Arizona, but who else was in the mix back then for you?
Yeah, I mean, probably when I cut it down to like 3 or 4, I did it officially UCLA. I went out to Villanova. I was really close to going to Villanova. John Olive, who ended up becoming the Torrey Pines coach and had a great career out there in San Diego, he was Raleigh Massimino's assistant, and I really took a liking to him. And playing in the Big East was always a little bit of a dream. Vanderbilt, Eddie Fogler, I was heading down that direction with Phil Ford as the assistant coach, and there was just a host of others, but those were the main ones. But when I got on Tucson, I got on the campus and just felt that vibe, man, it was a no-brainer.
Yes, sir. That weather will get you quick too, and a campus environment. So let's jump in, man. Let's talk about a little bit about your Arizona career, man. You had an amazing career. Led the Wildcats in your time there to over 100 wins, Final Four appearance. Did pretty much everything you could do at Arizona. So just talk about that and how your kind of progression went from. I've always wondered how it was for you, like early on in your career, because we never really discussed that. The year that we were together. So
Yeah.
like, how did it start for you, and how did it progress throughout your time there?
Yeah, going to Arizona was a true blessing. It really was. From day one, it was a very similar style to what I experienced at Mater Dei. Practice style, playing style was very similar. And so coming in, I transitioned in real smoothly. And I always make the story the first day of practice, we're going to practice. And I had no Chris Mills. I played with Chris Mills in the summer in the Say No. So I kind of knew Chris and his dad, Claude, and I kind of had a feel for the college game a little bit. We get into that first practice and we're doing everything in the shell drill and all the fast break drills. At one point, Chris looks over and goes, man, you know every drill. And I was like, this is like a Mater Dei practice. You know what I mean? So I felt comfortable from day one. Coach Olson, he valued me from day one. Like, I think he realized kind of what kind of individual I was and the background that I had. And so I was in the mix. I was like the sixth man in the first game. The first game was against Arkansas. I scored 13 points and got off to a great start. The second game, Khalid got a little bit of trouble. So I got my first start. And so that didn't last long. Khalid took it back immediately. But I was feeling comfortable from day one, and it never really changed. I found my niche. I started looking around, and my freshman year was Chris Mills, was an All-American, Pac-10 Player of the Year. We had Khalid Reeves, became a future, lottery pick. Damon Stoudemire, future lottery pick. Ed Stokes played in the NBA. I mean, I could go down the list. We had like 7, 8 guys who were NBA guys. Yeah. So I was kind of figuring like, well, where do I fit in this? And just playing hard, and it kind of developed into this role of being kind of like this glue guy who played defense, high assist guy, high basketball IQ, who played hard, and it worked out my 4 years.
Yeah, Corey, when I had C-Dub on, he kind of had a similar story about how there was always guys in front of you that, had the blueprint. It kind of showed you, what you could be doing in a couple of years if you just followed what Coach Olson was telling you and what your teammates told you and learned and worked hard. You'd have an opportunity to be successful and really have a chance to, play professionally, really, if you follow that game plan. So, I mean, yep. You were a perfect example of that, our year. That we played together, and where did you're always been a great leader. Like, where did that come from? Were you always like that, even coming up like as a younger kid? Were you always the kid that was kind of leading by example and with your voice and everything, or was that something you developed over time and through your time in Arizona?
I think it started developing. I was always looked as a leader because how it is, AJ. I was the best athlete even from a small kid always up. So people were always I was always on me. To go along with, I like to talk a lot. And so, right? And I think so. I think those two things, it developed over time. In high school, I was a captain 2 years in high school. So I kind of knew, what that was about, and probably had, made mistakes in terms of, maybe just dealing with people or how to communicate. So by the time I got to college, I kind of worked out some of those kinks. But I think you made a good point. Like, when I got there, man, we had Chris Mills. We had a guy like Deron Johnson. Yeah. They were like big brothers, man. They put their arms around us and really would show us the way. And we did it for others. And so I think that model you described really prepared me. I was a captain in Arizona really 3 years. Yeah. So I kind of had figured that voice out, and it's progressed to help me later in life to become a coach.
Yeah, well, I mean, you were always great at it, still great at it to this day. So, that was something that I always loved about you, as a player and a person, that you were always the hardest worker. So it was easy to follow, you know what I mean? And so thank you for all that you did, for me, obviously throughout when I was a young fella, just learning the ropes as well.
No, I appreciate it, AJ, man. Like I said, you came in off, fresh face and everything. And, but you had a skill set, and you were open for coaching for Coach Olson and just from the whole group, and you were out there. So no, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So in '94, I mean, obviously you guys made a great run, Final Four in Charlotte. Talk to me about that year and that run and what that meant to you and everything that went along with that.
Yeah, 94 ended up being one of those special seasons. Going into that year, not a lot of people know, in the summer of '93, we went to Australia. That was our foreign trip.
Yeah, we did too.
So we went down to New Zealand, Australia for like 27 days, something, some crazy long time. But during that time, we got a chance to kind of, regroup because we just had lost in the first round the year before to Santa Clara and Steve Nash. So we still were kind of hurting, and to kind of just get away from everything and get off the continent and go somewhere else was cool. And we got down there, and Coach Olson had a little surprise. I mean, he must have been in the lab and thinking about it. He's like, you know what, we're going to play Reggie at the 3. And so, we just had lost Chris Mills. He was the traditional 6'7" All-American 3-man, and now here we're going to go with a 6'2" 3-man. And he kind of rolled it out in Australia, and we rolled him out there. I think we went like 11-1 versus the NBL teams, the professional teams. So we knew we felt good, like, okay, we might have something. And so we get into the season, and Damon and Khalid, I mean, they're just murdering cats. I mean, they're just doing their thing every night. If one is on, we probably got an 80% chance of winning. If 2 are on, it was like 99.9. And so they were killing, we were rolling, and it just, everyone understood their roles on that team. I knew exactly what my role was. I was going to guard the other team's best player. I was going to be a high assist guy, and if I dropped in a bucket or 2 here and there, that'd be great. And we also obviously we had Joseph Blair, who was coming into his own with a nice freshman year, and now he was starting to develop. Ray O's kind of was that pick and pop guy. And then we had a solid bench with Corey and Joe McClain and others. And so it just was a magical year. We got into that tournament, and we were razor focused. We had just lost the year before, like I'd mentioned, in the first round, so that wasn't going to happen again. So, I think it was, I forgot who we played in the first round, team out of Baltimore. And then we caught Virginia in the second round. And that was a good team, an ACC team. And we rolled them, and we felt good. So we had a lot of confidence going in. We go out to the sports arena in LA the following weekend. We played Missouri. Don't take that back. We played Louisville, Clifford Rozier, and we thought, man, Clifford Rozier is All-American, and we put quick work on them. No disrespect, but we really put it on them. Played Missouri, and the funny thing about the Missouri game was after we had beat Missouri, or just the final seconds, we were so laser focused. I didn't even realize the Final Four was the next step. It was almost like an epiphany. It was a surprise. They were like, "Oh, yo, we going to the final," and so everybody exploded at that point. But that just shows you the level of focus for those 2 weekends, those 4 games that we were just locked in. And then obviously the Final Four, Arkansas, out in Charlotte, North Carolina. President was there, so it was a big deal. Yeah. Clinton was in the house, and it was just one of those. It was a great experience, a beautiful night. Unfortunately for us, it was the one night all year that Damon and Khalid were off. Yeah. Like that had never happened. And trust me, I'm not blaming them. We wouldn't have got there without them, but it was just the one night they were off. Like I was doing my thing and everybody else was kind of, was playing their games, but we just couldn't get over the hump. And we had like a 4-point lead, like a 4-6-point lead with like 6 minutes. Thought we might get there, but that 40 minutes of hell really was for us about a 4 minutes of hell. And that press took over, man. And Corey Beck and Scotty Thurman and Darnell Revison and some of those dudes, they started getting steals and getting momentum. And next thing you know, man, we just couldn't get over that hump.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a great run, brother. There's nothing like going to the Final Four. I mean, there's nothing like it. And,
right.
Have that experience, and congratulations to you. I know what it was like for us, which is crazy. And I know what it was like to come up short the next year, just like you said, when, all of our guys were off, when Miles and Bibb and Mike D were all off for the same game. It was a tough one to swallow, but at least we got there, right?
No, for sure. We always laugh. You 97 guys, you guys got it done, man, for real. And so we're like, dang, if we knew it was like that, we should have got it done. So I ended up taking that one step further, which was awesome.
So you're taking your 94 team over our 97 team, bro?
I love y'all. I love you like little brothers, but all day, every day.
I'm going to fight against that, man. But we'll never know, so it's hypothetical, bro.
All
right, so one of my favorite memories of you, and I talk about this all the time anytime I mention you, is when we were playing. It was my first month of college basketball. We're in the preseason at NIT. We run through, I think we played Long Beach State first, then we beat Arkansas at Arkansas, which to me was just crazy because I was playing at Arkansas, and we got them. Then we get to, Michigan and beat them in Madison Square Garden. And then the final is against Georgetown and Allen Iverson, right? And AI had been killing everybody, and, he had a good game against us, but there was one play in that game where AI went baseline and was going up for a layup, and you just came out of nowhere on the help side and just beat his shot. until like the 10th row. And I just remember you yelling, "No!" And he was just beating it into the stands. And so what do you remember about that game and that matchup with AI in that game, man?
Oh man, that was a magical night, man. It really was. Like I said, we were in the Garden in the Mecca of basketball, playing Allen Iverson, and the first thing I remember was kind of taking everything all in. I knew, we got Spike Lee making a small documentary. I think Woody Allen's somewhere in the corner. John Thompson's got the towel and he's walking. I'm like, this is it, man. Like this is truly the Mecca, and that was a dream. It really was for me. It's something, I wanted to get to a Final Four national championship, but I really had my eyes set on getting to the Garden that preseason because it had kind of been in Arizona, right away, all the Arizona teams in the past. And Coach Olson, Hall of Fame, Lute Olson, he had a great plan. He said, okay, we're going to put Miles on Allen. We're going to put Reggie on Victor Page. Figuring Allen's going to get his, which he did. And we would shut down Victor Page, which only had 6 points that game. And we come out with the win. And it was just a great night. I remember spinning in the Garden, dropping it off to my man AJ for the nice two-handed dunk. That was a beautiful moment, and getting that win. And I remember Coach being so happy, just being so happy, and just, it was just a great evening.
Yeah, man, that was like my introduction to college basketball. I was like, as soon as I remember riding on the bus just to the games, through Times Square, and just, looking around and like, I made the right choice, man. I definitely made the right choice coming here.
This is all right.
That's right. So that year, I mean, we had a really good year that year. Let me ask you this. If we didn't lose JB halfway through that year, you think we would have been in the Final Four and had a chance to win it that year?
I really do. I really do. Joseph Blair, he was 6'10". He's a little bit like Azuolas Tubelis is on this team in terms of his ability to run the floor and finish like he does. And he just was a big part. And we were able to adjust after, he was, after he was set, started missing some games and had some academic issues or whatever. But with him, man, I think there's no stopping us. Now we got Ben. Ben's kind of Ben and you and some of the guys. We just needed that other additional senior big. Yeah. And I just thought, we lost to Kansas by 2 or 3, I think. We had seen Syracuse before, so we kind of knew them. They would have been the next round opponents. So I really believe that would have happened. But like I say, we'll never know.
Yeah, I do too. I look back at that like, man, we had a chance that year too, man. We could have made a big run that year, but we still had a successful season. But thought we could have done a little bit more. So let's hop into a little bit of after your Arizona career. Obviously, you played in the NBA for a while, and played professionally overseas, all over the place. And I always like to get guys' perspectives who played overseas, what that was like for them, how that molded them as people. Because for me, it really did so much wonders for me as a person, playing over there for so many years. So what was your career like? You can touch on your NBA career if you like, but then talk about your career overseas as well.
Okay. Yeah. So I was a second-round draft choice by Cleveland Cavaliers. And after that, I played another year with San Antonio Spurs, 2 full seasons, almost about 1,000 minutes. So I had a great NBA experience. Unfortunately, I had a little bit of a health issue that I had to deal with. But once I got over that, I was kind of back in business again and started going overseas. So as you mentioned, I played in Israel and France, Portugal. I played in South America a little bit. In my last year, I think in Kiev, which is a place that's in the news right now, and played for BC Kiev out there. And so, like you though, my overseas experience was fantastic. I was very blessed, obviously, and fortunate to get those first couple of years in the league under my belt and have some success there. So I had some confidence going overseas. But my first gig was for B'nai Herzliya, kind of a middle of the pack team in Israel. And when I got there, they were talking about, just kind of making everybody around me better. So I was kind of passing and doing my thing. And I realized no, like over here, America's got to get busy. Like, you got to put production. They want to see numbers. And so that wasn't a role I hadn't been since high school.
Right.
I was kind of a fitting guy in college and in the NBA the same way. But now I'm being asked to stretch myself a little bit and being asked, I really grew as a player. I started doing things, realizing man, I can be a scorer. My second year playing for FC Porto, a Euro Cup team, I averaged almost 25 points a game. So I started realizing I can do this. I can score at a high level. Went to France, was scoring. And so I grew as a player. I grew as a person, being able to go to Lisbon or Paris or all these beautiful countries, being in Brazil and Rio. You grow as an individual. You start taking life experiences in. You start learning more things about yourself, what kind of person you really are. And so I embraced it. I'm an individual who loves to travel. I'll make a fool of myself and speak the language and try to all the crazy foods, as you know. So it really made me a well-rounded individual. And I'm just very fortunate, I'm sure you are, that we had those experiences.
Yeah, I think for me, like basketball wise, it's the same thing as you. Because, I was a scorer, but never looked at as like the first option. And when I got to Spain and, like second or third year, like I was averaging, 18, 19, 20 points a game. And it really was that number one option. So it really helped my game expand. And you had to do it. You're right. You have to put numbers up over there. You don't put numbers up. I mean, you're on the next play smoking it back. They'll have somebody else in there.
I tell people I had to put my little cape on every night. You know what I mean? I had to get like 20 points, 10 assists, 9 steals, like I do everything. So it was cool.
That's right. So after your playing career, I mean, I want to talk about this too, is like you also coached overseas for a lot of years. You coached in Japan for many years. What was that experience like, and how did that work? Because I know, like when I was in Spain, my first year, it was hard to communicate with anybody. And so, we had one assistant coach that spoke a little bit of English, so he would translate what the coach was saying. Basketball is kind of a universal game, so you can pick up, what guys are saying, even though you may not understand the language fully. But what was that experience like for you coaching in Japan?
Yeah, no, Japan was fantastic. I was there for 6 years, coached 3 different teams, had great success there. I coached 14 years in all. So after I got done playing 9 years, went back, got my degree. My first offer was from Coach Olson. So I spent a little bit of time with Coach Olson. I was a D League, now G League head coach for 2 years. And now, I find myself in Japan. And I have to mention it, my mentor, Dave Unai, he is the former Cal State LA, Cal State Dominguez Hill coach. This year was awarded the John Wooden Award. First time Division II coaches ever received that, with Coach K and Lute Olson. Wow. So this is kind of a big time figure in my life and in the basketball community. He kind of connected me to going to Japan. And so I hooked up with the Yokohama team right outside of Tokyo for first 2 years. My first year there, we get to the Final Four. My first year Final Four, I got the Coach of the Year. My second year, we win the championship. And then by the end, I was coaching Mitsubishi, one of the club teams. And so it was a beautiful 6 years for my family and I. I didn't treat the language like it was a big deal. I had a translator with me 24/7. Right. Probably half my team spoke English. The other half probably spoke, but never would tell me. They'd be like, Coach, I don't understand. I'm like, no, you understand, man. All right. Hey, yeah. Right. And then if you put them on that bench, that's the international language. They seem to always understand exactly what I wanted. And so, but no, it was a beautiful experience. Japan is a unique culture. And so kind of navigating that, my wife's half Japanese and we had some family there. So I had a little bit of background. But yeah, man, I just treat it like it was a universal game of basketball. The one thing that was very successful for me in Japan in particular was they were very much younger players didn't challenge older players. They're very respectful kind of in that, and even in their speaking. There's the way, even you would speak differently to me. I would say, maybe just good morning. You'd be like, good morning, sir, in Japanese. And so they're very respectful of that. When I came in, I blew that up and brought the American model. Like, yo, we compete here. If you could take somebody, take them. You know what I mean? And had an open door policy. And those things really resonated with those guys over there. And that's why I was able to have the success.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. Yeah, you did a great job over there. And, having you as a coach, I'm sure was beneficial for those guys. And that's interesting that you said that. Like, I'm sure their games blossomed because you were able to open up the communication lines for them.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something we got from Coach Olson. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, Coach Olson was always a big about, like, he was a Hall of Famer in so many ways. The big thing was just letting you do you and figuring what that meant for the group. Mm-hmm. And I realized that. And so, yeah, I want to make these guys part of the process. End of the day, I'm still the head coach, but I want them to have a voice, make sure that they had some ownership in what we were doing. And I thought that was more powerful.
So you talked about it a little bit, but talk about your relationship with Coach O, because you have the unique, you have the unique opportunity of playing for him and then coaching with him as well. And so talk about your dynamic with Coach and just how that relationship blossomed over the years.
Yeah, it was always a really good relationship. Coach always respected me even as a player. And we used to, even when I was a player, I was a little feisty and I had some ideas back then. And I had some, and sometimes those ideas, maybe I didn't communicate in the best way or didn't do it at the right time. And so we used to butt heads a little bit, especially my senior year, we butted heads, but always in a respectful manner. Like he would bring me in and we would laugh and like we'd be arguing, but at the same time we were having this, we want the same thing. Right. And I think we used to kind of chuckle about that at the end. And so I think we had that kind of I had that base. It was a 3-year captain. I was kind of a feisty guy. Coach realized that. that once I got done with my career and I started thinking about what I want to do next, I started talking to him. And now looking back on my whole life, he's been at kind of every major point in my adult life. He was there, through college maturation, being at my wedding. Every time I had a kid, I brought him to him. I could pick him up on the phone. So he was always in my life and such an impactful guy. And for him to believe me as a player and now believing me as a coach, it meant a lot to me. And just to see how he operated and really as a coach, how much time he put into the details that we didn't see as a player. We thought coach rolled it out. Practice was so seamless. It was so fun. But man, he really took his time. He really was a visionary. Just a man who played with 3 bigs at one time, played with 3 guards. He could play in so many different ways. I was telling someone the other day, he'd be so perfect for today's game.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
So perfect.
Yep.
Recruiting wise, system wise, he wouldn't have to change anything and he still would be a Hall of Fame coach. And that's what makes him so special. And the fact that he was in my life and in your life and so many others, man, we were blessed.
We were definitely blessed, man. He did so much for us that we didn't even recognize at the time. When you're there, when you get older and you get out of there and you have a different relationship with coach, and you just realize how much he just helped you when you didn't even know it. You know what I mean? So
yep.
He was a wonderful man. So we were blessed to have him. So okay, let's jump into this year's team. Okay, yeah. I love this year's team, brother. Like they are playing some of the best basketball I've seen at Arizona for years. What are your thoughts on Tommy Lloyd, the job that he's doing, and this year's squad, man?
Yeah, I mean, Tommy Lloyd has been fantastic. He has been a great addition. I've been telling people it's been a perfect marriage. We've got some guys now, and Ben Mathurin, who yesterday was named Pac-12 Player of the Year. Azuolas Tubelis and Christian Koloko, also first team, all Pac-12. But more importantly, these guys were just kind of rounding into form. Tubelis and Mathurin played under 19s this year in Europe, yep. And not only did they play, they were the stars. And so, to have these guys kind of now peaking collegiately, kind of where they're at, and now Tommy coming in, setting a little bit of a different tone than Sean Miller, different philosophies, open things up. Sean was a very good coach, a great coach, but he was a little rigid and kind of what he would accept on the court and what he wanted, the program to kind of feel like. And Tommy's opened that back up. It's more Coach Olson-esque, yes. Where, you can make mistakes and the mistakes kind of laughed off a little bit. Right. And he allows you to grow on the floor, and the guys have blossomed under that system. This team is big, athletic. They can beat you small. They can beat you big. Offensively, the number 1 team scoring in the nation. They will run you off the court, but defensively, they can do some really good things. So the fact that they're so good in all facets to go along with the size they have and Tommy's philosophy, man, they've been rolling.
Give me 2 X factors for Arizona to make the Final Four and have a shot at taking everything this year.
Yeah, big thing is the size advantage they have to continue to take advantage of. This team crushes people with points in the paint. That has to be at a high clip, whether it's playing, whether it's fast breaking, getting that fast break thing going, which is more difficult in the tournament. But using that size advantage, playing high-low, which they've had a lot of success doing this year, and then point guard play. Kirk Christa and Justin Kier. There's some pressure on them. Kerr has been he's been consistent for the most part, but he has those nights where he maybe loses focus or attention and he has a bad shooting night. He can't do that. He's the one individual guys are going to kind of be looking at, like, if we can attack there. So just making sure that he's on point. But yeah, as long as they remain themselves and just keep doing what they're doing and playing hard. All right, I think at times this year they got a little bored, started kind of playing with the food. It's like, nah, man, like y'all need to stay focused. But when they do that, when they're locked in, man, I think they're number 1 team in the nation.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. Good. I'm glad you said that because more people. I've been stuck at number 2 for a while, and Gonzaga's probably not going anywhere anytime soon. But I think they played like the number 1 team in the nation at times this year, and really had just an exceptional year of getting the program, in a spot where if I'm a high school recruit, man, there's nowhere else in the world I want to go but Arizona right now.
Oh, so for sure.
I think the recruiting is going to pick up, tremendously. I love the style and the energy that Tommy Lloyd's brought to the program, and glad that you're a part of it, man. And you get to go along for the ride too. Me doing this show this year feels like I'm a part of the team too, which has been fun. So, I think they're just going to have a great run, and it's going to be fun for all of us to watch. So I appreciate you jumping on. I know you're a busy man. I know you got a busy time at the the Pac-12 tournament. Enjoy yourself, Reg. You're one of my favorites, man. I appreciate everything you've done for me, and hopefully we can get you back on Bear Down Ballers in the future, my brother.
Hey, Jay, man, you're awesome, brother. Anytime, man, I'd love to be back. I love the fact that you're doing this, educating these folks, getting more Wildcat fans something to listen to. So anytime, man, you know I love you, and bear it down.
Yes, sir. Bear down. Thanks, Reg.